Starting with a bonus snub at the very bottom of the list because I forgot to add in, I'll just spoil, I forgot to add in DeAaron Fox. No one would take this list seriously if I had a 2024 All-Star, NBA All-Star snubs list and it didn't have DeAaron Fox in it. I thought about somehow making it so I didn't have to put him in, but then I was like, no, I have to do it. So we have an extra one. Scotty Barnes is number 11 of all-time snubs this season. Why didn't he make an all-star team? My main thing was like, why didn't, and Ryan Russillo talked about this on his podcast. He compared Scotty Barnes to Paolo Banchero. He's a young player in the East who's really good. Why would you choose Paolo over Scotty? Scotty has more assists per game. He has more rebounds. They've played about the same amount of games. He has a higher player impact estimate. And if you know me, if you watch this show, I like player impact estimate and I like player efficiency rating. I think they're very good indicators on like how good a player is, especially if you compare position to position, because pi is always going to be high for centers. It's just the way it is. I don't know why, just that's how the formula factors out. Scotty Barnes and Paolo sort of play the same position though. They're both fours, so we can kind of compare their pi. They're very similar. His is 13.2, Paolo's is 13.1, so they're very similar anyway. These are very similar players. They're both big fours who play with their bodies a lot, play very physical. It's probably a better way to say it than play with their bodies. He has slightly less points than Paolo. Paolo had 22 points per game, while Scotty has 20.3. So, people like points, people like scoring, but again, pretty similar. Scotty has more blocks and he has more steals. Again, the numbers are very similar. These are very similar players. Scotty has lower usage. So Scotty's usage was like 23%, meaning he had the ball 23% of the time while he was on the court for a Raptors game, or still does, season's not over. And then Paolo was 29% usage rating. So that's one thing I thought was really interesting, is that the Magic are really running a lot of offense through Paolo Banchero. I thought it would have been more Franz Wagner, but no. He leads the Magic in usage, so he's more of a focal point of that team than Scotty Barnes is for the Raptors. So, while both players are good, why did Paolo Banchero make a all-star team? Why did the coaches pick? So with the reserves, one thing you need to know is the reserves are picked entirely by the coaches. The starters are picked by the media, fans, and the players, while the reserves are picked by the coaches. Kind of gives you an indicator of what coaches value. And you're going to see coaches value wins. So, Scotty Barnes, he didn't make an all-star team. You probably were close because the East was pretty weak weak sauce in terms of how many all-stars and how good players were. Randall made it, Randall, not great. Jaylen Brown, he's on a team full of really great players. There's a lot of guys that could have been an all-star. Jaylen Brown made it because he's the star. That's another thing. Stars. If you're already an established star, it's highly likely you're going to make an all-star team if you're already established as a star because people have fallen in love with you. Let's move on. We're only on 11. 10's James Harden. I threw James Harden in there because James Harden is a great player. Granted, he doesn't have great stats this year. We're looking at 17, 5, and 8 assists. He's a great point guard, and he's taking a back seat. He's not getting a ton of points, 17 points a game. That's not a James Harden season of old when he was racking up he had one season where he averaged like 38 points a game. 38 points a game when he either won or didn't win. It might have been the year Giannis won. He actually had higher points per game, but nevertheless, this is a different style of James Harden, and I like James Harden. He does what needs to be done. He did it on the Brooklyn Nets. He did it on the Sixers. And I think that's one of the frustrations he has as a player is he thinks he sacrifices a lot, and he doesn't think he gets the credit that he's due. And I agree, because I still think he's a great player. I still think he's pretty exceptional. So I give it up for James Harden. So I have a soft spot. He's number 10 on my list. 1.2 steals a game. He's stepped it up on defense. His defense was always a meme back in OKC, back in Houston especially. He wants to win. And, I understand people don't really like him. They don't like his attitude. They don't like his play style. They don't like that he goes to the foul line all the time. That was more of the James Harden of old, Rockets Harden. But, hey, great basketball player. Does what needs to be done. And he has a higher player impact estimate than Paul George, who did make the All-Star team. But the plus minus for Paul George, a little bit higher. So, who cares? Who cares? They're both good. Rudy Gobert. A lot of people are saying, oh yeah, Rudy Gobert should have been an All-Star. I think Anthony Edwards said, I don't really care if I'm an All-Star. I just want Rudy to make it. I think Rudy probably is very vocal that he wants to be an All-Star. Remember, he cried when he didn't make the All-Star team. Totally fine. Not judging. Not calling him less of a man. But he did cry. It means a lot to him is what I'm trying to say. So I'm sure he had voiced that to Anthony Edwards, saying, you know, I really want to be on an All-Star team. It really means a lot to me every time I make an All-Star team. So, but Cat has a better pie estimate. Cat is better. Cat did make the All-Star team. Rudy Gobert did not. And I listened to a lot of basketball media, and people seem to think, well, they have the best defense in the league. And it's led by Rudy Gobert. He should have been an All-Star. Fair enough. But if you look at my note here, All-Star is not for defenders. That's how it is. We don't want to watch guys play defense in an All-Star game. We don't want to watch the All-Star game. Let's be honest. This is more just like a theoretical, like an All-NBA team. But then they actually put him out on the court. No one cares who wins. So whatever. He's second in rebounds per game. Good for you, Rudy. So, first in the West. Yeah. But he did make it, and it's fine. You know, there's only a few players that I'm actually going to say. I'm actually going to tell you which players I believe should be on the All-Star team and not another player. I'll make the substitution. I'll say this guy shouldn't, this guy should. I'll say it. Because if you're going to say this guy should have made the All-Star team, you got to say which guy shouldn't. Them's the rules. Jimmy Butler didn't play enough. He also doesn't care about the All-Star game. He never cares about the All-Star game. Sometimes he doesn't even play. Sometimes he's selected. It's of no concern to him. He's always sort of been renowned as the guy that never gave two shoes about the All-Star game. Great three-point percentage. He's not shooting a lot of threes. He never really does. 2 3-point attempts a game. Maybe he should shoot more. He's only played 34 games as well, which is about as many as Donovan Mitchell, who is an All-Star. So does it really matter? To some degree. Cavs are better than Miami. Donovan Mitchell is an All-Star. Jimmy Butler's not, and that's why. Because the Heat aren't good enough. His player impact estimate, pretty high, 14.3. Jimmy's great, 1.2 steals. Jimmy's just being Jimmy this year. Unfortunately, his team is not good enough to have 2 All-Stars, because Bam Adebayo is an All-Star this year. Zion, bet y'all didn't see this coming, and I bet you're all kind of like, what are you talking about? You don't know about basketball. Nah, not really. I don't know a lot, but I can tell you that he's on a mid-team. His plus-minus is in the positive, so, which is more than Brandon Ingram, because it could have been Brandon Ingram. You can't have 2 Pelicans on my snubs list, so I chose Zion, who has a little bit higher points per game, a little bit better pie rating, and his pie rating is better than Damian Lillard, who's a starter. We really can't judge the starters because they're partly picked by the fans. The fans aren't looking at stats. I don't know. Who even votes for All-Star Game? I don't. So, and like I said, established stars are more likely to make the All-Star. Of course, Zion is an established star, but nevertheless, he's having a good season. His pie rating's high. He always has a really great field goal percentage, 58.9. He's a great player, and he's a performer. Would have been nice to see some crazy-ass dunks in the All-Star game. You may say, well, he's so heavy. How is he going to get that big old body up in the air to do some cool dunks? Well, he seems to do it still. If you watch highlights, if you watch the top 10, a lot of times you see Zion doing some pretty big dunks. Unfortunately, the Pelicans aren't good enough for Zion to be an All-Star. But he ranks 7 on my snubs list. Good for you, Zion. Okay, bet y'all didn't expect this. I don't know why there's a red box on there. Not sure what's going on. It's kind of cool looking though, actually. He is inefficient shooting and turnovers. He's raw. He's still pretty raw. He's still a really great player. His stat line is 20, 10, and 3. 20 points a game, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists. Pie rating 15.5. The pie rating is going up. Victor Wembanyama, his team is so bad. The Spurs are terrible. Pop kind of wants them to lose, kind of wants them to be bad. Starting Jeremy Sochan at point guard, even though that's not his position. I'm not a basketball analyst, but I'll tell you one thing. The Spurs aren't trying to be good. So Wembanyama is on a minutes restriction as well. So 28 minutes a game. Dude, 20, 10, and 3 and 28 minutes per game. This guy is going to be great. This is going to be something. Once he's playing full games and he's not a rookie anymore, he's a couple seasons in to being an NBA player, he's already leading the leagues in blocks per game. He's already leading the league in blocks per game as a rookie. He's my rookie of the year. I know OKC's a lot better, but I don't think the Spurs' record and how poor they've been playing is Victor Wembanyama's fault. But he's a great player. It would have been nice to see him in an All-Star game. He's up there with in the West. I can't really take anyone off the West list because I just can't. Well, not yet. So Victor Wembanyama, you didn't make an All-Star team. You shouldn't have made an All-Star team, but you're playing really well. Good for you. Alperen Sengun, who people call him like a mini Jokic, and I was looking at his stats, and he kind of is. 22, 9, and 5. Granted, those aren't Jokic-like numbers. Jokic would be like 23, 11, and 9, maybe. But his usage is high. He's kind of the main point of attack for the Houston Rockets. He's the star of that team. So I wanted to give him love for that. He's a leader on that team. I don't know what season he's in. I believe he's in the Jalen Green draft. I believe they're both on the same team in the same draft. I could be wrong. But he's stepping up and he's playing really well. And Rockets just aren't good enough to have an all-star. And it sucks. But 21.7 points per game. Alperen Sengun, be on the lookout. Very good. Great player. I can't take Karl Anthony Towns off and put Alperen Sengun. It's not fair. It's not right. I got to leave Karl Anthony Towns on there. But maybe we'll take him off in a little bit. Jarrett Allen has played with no Evan Mobley. And that's kind of why I wanted to give him some credit. He has a really great pie rating. Again, I'm a queen for pie. The impact he has on the court is pretty incredible, man. And he's third in the league by field goal percentage. He makes the easy buckets. Big centers need to make the easy buckets. Not like a Jaren Jackson Jr., who's a great defender, but low field goal percentage. Make the easy stuff, I give guys credit. 2 points, 2 points. And Jarrett Allen puts the ball in the basket. His plus minus is 4.5. He's winning the Cavs games. He doesn't have like crazy points, 15.5. It's decent for a center. It's good for a defending center. But like I said, defense does not get you into the All-Star game. And it's, that's how it is. But Jarrett Allen, I wanted to, make a point that he's playing really well. And I wanted to give credit where credit's due. That's why he's number 4 on my list. What do we want in the All-Star game? What defines an All-Star? That's something to consider, I think that's something to think about. DeAaron Fox. Now, I had to put DeAaron Fox on. I had to figure out a place to put DeAaron Fox. 27.5 points per game. That's more than Dame. I know. That's more than Dame. Dame, also an incredible player. I'm not saying you should swap one for the other, but that's a lot of points to not make an All-Star game. And I'm going to be honest with you, these guys that score a lot of points, they should be in the All-Star game. That's the way it should be. I'm sorry. I know. But 27, he's a point scorer. Not getting a lot of rebounds, not getting a lot of assists. He's a bucket getter. 1.8 steals, swiper. That's why they call him swiper, because he steals. Hasn't been on an all-defensive team, though. Do steals get you on an all-defensive team? No, they don't. That's not it's an illusion. You think he stole the ball. They were on defense. He took the ball, created an offensive play. People don't care. That's not how they value defense. It's just not the way it is. So 2.9 plus minus. Remember, on a mid team, I think they're in the middle. I think actually the Suns just pushed them out of the 6th seed, so they're in the 7th seed. They're in play-in territory. So unfortunately, the Sacramento Kings didn't get any All-Stars. No All-Star reserves, and Mike Brown's pretty pissed. He's pretty pissed about that because it's the coaches. The coaches saying, hey, your players aren't good enough. Sorry, Mike Brown. It's just not, you're just not good enough. Your team's not good enough. But fair enough, because they're not great, and that's just sometimes how it goes. And Karl Anthony Towns makes an all-star team, and Anthony Edwards does. De'Aaron Fox doesn't. Who's next? Trey Young. Dude, Trey Young has gotten more efficient. He used to be a high-volume guy, not very efficient, similar to his draft classmate, Luka Doncic, but his efficiency has improved. I have a theory. The league doesn't like Trey Young. That's the thing. The league doesn't like Trey Young. I don't know why, because it's all the coaches voting for him. The guy he's leading the league in assists, total assists. He has 11 assists per game. Per game, Tyrese Halliburton has the most assists. But in terms of totals, I think he's led the league in assists in total league assists like 3 seasons. And his points are crazy. He's up there with most points per game. I'm sure he's top 10. He's played 44 games. His PI is 13.8, but he's on a bad team. We'll forgive him for that. Trey Young should have been an all-star, and he's fun to watch. He's a performer, just like for the same reason Zion. Trey Young should have been an all-star, and it's sad. This is the second season he's been snubbed for an all-star team, and he's not a great defender, but it's an all-star game. He's been all-NBA before. I think he's an underrated player, and I got a feeling his attitude. I got a feeling he's difficult to work with. I'm getting that feeling. Again, I don't know this man, but it seems like he doesn't have a lot of friends in the league. It would seem. I don't know. So, Domantas Sabonis, dude, this guy should have been an all-star, and it sucks. He's leading the league in rebounds per game, and he's played 48 games, basically played every game. Maybe he has played every game. I don't know. I don't know if the Kings have played 48 games. 20 points per game, 8 assists. These are, now this is mini Jokic numbers. He should have at least been a reserve. Better than Cat, 16.8, better than Cat. His PI rating's better than Cat. He's really crushing it. He's a great player. He's a great rebounder, not a great shot blocker, so he's small, but it doesn't even really matter. We're just talking about the stats that would have made him an all-star, and he has everything you want. I don't know if there's going to be any injuries reserves on the West, but I'm sure if there is a front court injury, Domantas Sabonis is going to be subbed in. And if I was Mike Brown and I was coaching Domantas Sabonis, I'd be pretty disappointed that my fellow coaches didn't add him to the list. That would hurt me. So, good for Domantas. I think he's having a great season. He'll probably be All-NBA. Because Joel Embiid won't be first-team All-NBA or any All-NBA team because he's been injured and he's not going to play 65 games. So, Domantas Sabonis is going to be an All-NBA player, but not an All-Star. Sometimes that happens. Some seasons that happens. Sometimes it doesn't. Thank you for being here. Be good to your mother. Eat a corn dog.